Welcome to the Heart of You monthly meet. Each month, we gather on Zoom to share our community's gifts, a series of talks from living druids about connecting with the world today, and let it spark conversation. This month, we're joined by Steve Niner and his talk, Earthing Your Magic, an unpacking of the crane bag that is permaculture.
So let's just ground in, feel the holy earth beneath our feet, wherever we are. In the sky, here it's clear and there's moonlight outside. Wherever you are, there's the great dome of the heavens is above us. So we're going to dive in. So I'm going to start. This is a picture of Molokai. This is the place where I work. I was working here earlier on today, planting some herbs and stuff. So I thought I would start by just talking about what type of or how I come to be a druid. So I initially did ovate and bardic stuff about 20 years ago, and then I kind of spun out into shamanism and magic, and just generally into Western esoteric stuff, predominantly chaos magic. And then while I was working in the land about a couple of years ago, more and more, because it's in Wales, I was getting nudged more and more, get back into druidry, get back into druidry. So my first camp, I came back into, I'd been initiated and done all that stuff at Wild Ways. I contacted Elaine and then came back in a year ago. And where the permaculture comes in is that I've always, I came across permaculture. Permaculture is a kind of a way of relating to the land. It's the nearest thing you can get to magic, yet practically deal with the land that one's living on and working with. And I kind of found it kind of really early on in its history, in the late 70s. I was living in London, and I kind of it was what I needed to earth myself. I was a very spaced out hippie at that time, and I followed that path. And there was always four parts to my walk. There was always a political edge to it. I was always into activism. There was always a kind of feeling of deep connection to nature, and there was permaculture, which gave me a practical way of working with the land and work with that deep nature connection. And then there was the earth-based spirituality, which I've had all my life. So I kind of, this book by Starhook, I can't remember, it's very tatty, I've had it years, was the book that kind of pulled it all together to me. I used to have them all in separate compartments, and it was this book that actually brought it together. This man, Aleister Crowley, who is kind of like the daddy of magic in many ways. He's the most notorious magician, and he totally over the top character. But one of his things he said was that magic was the art and define magic as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. And permaculture asks a question magic often forget: whose will? And for me, this journey has been one, is that it's not about my will. It's about what is the land talking to me? What does this land want to do? I'm kind of very, hang on, how do I go back? I need another slide. I've lost my subject. Yeah. Kind of Dion Fortune was another major, she is the big magician teacher for me. She defined it as the art of changing consciousness at will. So we can choose to change our consciousness, and that's how we 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 can choose to not impose our will, but we can choose to listen to what the land is telling us. This is permaculture. Permaculture is a philosophy of working with rather than against nature, of looking at systems in all their functions rather than only asking one yield of them, and of allowing systems to demonstrate their own evolutions. Bill, he's sadly dead now. He and David Holmgren, who is on the next slide. No, he isn't. It's another slide. I'm getting confused with stuff. Bill and David developed permaculture in the kind of mid-70s. Bill had spent a lot of time in the bush in Australia and in various other places, and he was trying to find a way. He was just incredibly inspired by how the indigenous peoples in different places live harmoniously with their land. He and David realized that this was something that we really, really needed to get a handle on if we're going to try to build a world that is worth living in. Because already in the 70s, we knew, us who were around then, we already knew it was all going downhill in a big way and quickly. And permaculture was a solution. But he and David decided, because that they were going to throw all the kind of spiritual side of it out, because they didn't want it written off as kind of being hippie, which it was, but they didn't want that to be up front. They wanted it to be basically scientific. They wanted it. They had the data. He's an anthropologist. They knew that this stuff worked. People can live harmoniously on the land. We can, this is we can live in right relationship with all of life. This is Patrick Whitfield, who again died fairly recently. The aim is to make our lives more sustainable and more productive while reducing the work and energy required. We do this by taking nature as a model for designing our houses, gardens, farms, woodlands, towns, villages. This is David Holmgren. Permaculture can be described as a design system for resilient living, a land use based on universal ethics and ecological design principles. So all this kind of feeds in to a relationship, a way of being with the land, where one is listening to the land, of what the land what does the land need? What does this place need? What does my community need? What can I do in a good way? What is mine to do? What can I do to make this world a better place? This is David again. Permaculture is also a global movement of individuals, groups, and networks working to create the world we want by providing for our needs and organizing our lives in harmony with nature. The movement is active in most privileged and most destitute communities and countries. This was a picture taken, I think, about last April at a Land Workers Alliance gathering up the Conwy Valley in North Wales. Amazing event. This is an early section where the community is here. Community is so important. That's how we're going to get through all the shit shows that is coming down the line. We're going to get through things by being in community. This was one of our initial work groups, planting trees. We've actually now planted about 3,500 trees on this land. And we do ceremony. This was ceremony at the summer solstice about 3 years ago on the land in North Wales. You may see this, the little bloke at the front. That's Kieran, who many of you will know. So we did this ceremony as the sun came up, and the sun tracked right way up. It rose above the sea and tracked up over the Carnegie Mountains. So our rituals, our celebrations is part. That's how we feed the land. It feeds us. It feeds the land. It feeds the place. It feeds the ancestors. So this is the basic nuts and bolts of what permaculture is about. These are the principles, and they shift. So each one of these is something that one can, just a great deal of work has been done, kind of meditations on each one of those things, because each of them can be applicable and they interrelate, and you're always asking questions. How do I obtain the yield from what I'm doing? How do I get feedback? How do I reduce my dependency? How do I produce? What's my impact? How much waste am I making? So you design from the small patterns, from the larger patterns to smaller patterns. You're always observing nature and trying to emulate the systems that nature has done, because nature has been doing this way longer than us humans have been playing around here, and we've lost those patterns. So at the center of those principles are the ethics, which is care for the earth, care for people, and fair share. Fair share is that we only take what we need, and we share our abundance on all levels. All of this operates on every level. This is the ethics. This is a recent book that's just come out, and it encapsulates all the kind of meditations on the principles. It's brilliant. Wilf has gone into incredible detail, so it's an incredible resource if you want to dive deeper into this. So one of the principles is everything gardens. So nature, when it operates, on its own, everything I was taught a while back that where nature as consciousness, as intelligence, sees whatever humans do, whatever it is, whether it be a garden or a book or a family or a meal, sees all of those as gardens, because you apply exactly the same principles as you garden. You care, you nourish, you prune back, you take ingredients from different places, you're mixing. So it's a beautiful kind of way of thinking that all one's activity is a garden, one's community is a garden. So this little picture here, that was in London. I took that picture when I was on my way to an Extinction Rebellion. Need to go back. Yeah, it was an Extinction Rebellion demo. So these are perfect nature gardens. This is just up the road from me. So these have not been planted. These are fence posts that have rotted away, and birds have shit in them and planted those plants. It's kind of like an absolute. You've got a rowan tree. You probably get that's a Sitka spruce. That's a bilberry. It's incredible, and it was a whole row of them. All these amazing little gardens, just sitting there. This is nature gardening. This is Dinas Emeris, Merlin's place, Vortigern's Castle, Mid Wales. the place where the dragons were summoned. This place, I did a ritual up here in very, very mangled Welsh about 5 years ago. And to basically to try to, in the story, there are two warring dragons, and Merlin was to be sacrificed to placate those dragons. But he kind of exposed. Well, it's a big story. But what I did there, the ritual I did there, was to try to, rather than the dragons to being antagonistic, my idea was, or my ritual was about trying to get the dragons together to work together to throw all those who abuse the earth and other people, all peoples. Permaculture is revolution disguised as gardening. So I'm going to go back to specifics. So a lot of the work here at Molokai has been about healing the land, because it's there's residues of huge destructions. This is just up the road from the land I kind of work with. And this is the big slate quarries outside Bethesda. These quarries were they roofed New York, they roofed Montreal, they went to Australia. There's slates from these quarries. And the people who owned these quarries lived here, which is called Penryn Castle. And they kind of, this is the most evil place I've ever been in my life. I described it when I came out, it was like Mordor with a tea room. It's kind of, they owned the land that I work with, and their imprint, it's their eye of Sauron. They dominate this whole area, and we have done a number of magical workings to try to heal that and bind those energies. Those are the workers, the quarrymen. It was the longest strike on those quarries there has been in British history. The other side of their well was slave plantations, and ancestral trauma that gets locked because one is bringing harmonious, or one's working with the powers of nature to facilitate a process of healing, of making good, of doing things in the right way. That's the gate, the doorway into the castle. And this is just outside where I am now. This wall, and I realized, kind of living here and being with this wall, that all those stones and the miles and miles and miles of dry stone walls, they were put there by guys, predominantly men. They were built with on people on absolutely starvation wages. So they were built with not good feeling, a lot of them. There's lots of curses involved in them. These witch bottles found in dry stone walls, you know. And the only way they could fight back was by going slow, by taking everything very slow. And that's laid a pattern onto the land here where everything takes slow. So of the patterns from the past repeat into the future. We live out those ancestral patterns. So we need to find strategies where we can, in a way, speed up the healing, in a way, acknowledging what went into the landscape, of what created it. This is what we're working for. This, to me, is Druidry in action. This is what the work we do, and we use every tool. You know, we need every tool we can get hold of, practical, spiritual, you know, emotional, everything. We throw it all at this job. It's what it's ours to do. This is a friend's place in Herefordshire, taken a few years back. We are icebergs. Well, you know, we're living on top. Our lives, in a way, I should have said, our lives are icebergs because we're living on top of layers and layers and layers of ghosts, of history, of past experience. And for healing to really, really work, we need to acknowledge it and kind of, I think the deep ancestors, this is the work they want us to do. When a complex system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the entire system to a higher order. So each of us can actually do that. We can be those small islands of coherence. This is the land. This is in the autumn. We're just finishing off a tree plant. It's been incredible, the working of the land for a long time. It was like the spirits within the land, the fairy, the ancestors were really suspicious. They rightly don't trust humans. We fucked them around so many times. Why should they trust us? And they kind of learn slowly by working with the land, by actually listening to it. It tells me what needs to happen, and we need to you know, really cultivate humility. We don't know. It's such a mess. It's only the big powers in a way, the old gods, the old ones, the mountains. They know it. This is the old pig pen, the pigsty, which is used as a tool shed. This is a beautiful church in mid Wales. In the church, it's a place called St Mangaleth, and it's near Rushpool, and it's got these vast ancient yews around it, and it's built on a Neolithic, a big Neolithic site. And her whole story is that she rescued a hare, and in a way she's a saint, but she's a hare. And it's for me, it's all about kind of really connecting into the deep ancient spiritual powers that live just beneath the surface. It's here, and we're part of that, and it's what we're, you know, for me, that's what I dedicated my life to do, to bring this forward, and I'll call on and ask for help from whoever I can and wherever I can find it. This place is amazing, absolutely holy place. This is on the land. When I first came up here and knew I was going to come up here, I was doing some work with a New Orleans folk saint called Saint Expedite. He's the patron saint of getting shit done quickly. And to get me up here, I had to, I said I'd build him a shrine once I got up here. That's the shrine I built for him. It was kind of one of the first things I did here. And he's there. Actually, it's a bit neglected. It needs some work on that. But actually, that's it. And that's one of big oaks. the land is ringed in these ancient oaks. This is the island of St. Dwynwen, the Welsh St. Valentine's, whose day was a couple of weeks, feast day was a couple of weeks ago. Another huge, powerful spiritual place where the saints are like sitting on top of ancient energies. The saints are like a gloss. Yeah, they were people, but they're a gloss on top of it. This is another one of the holy wells nearby. So in a way, I go to the places, the holy places, for sustenance, for inspiration. This is at Penryn Point on Anglesey, a beautiful holy well. This is the holy well that is just up a little way from our land. So it's just a walk, and it's on beside the Pilgrim's Way that runs from St Catherine's Well on the north coast near Rhyl all the way to Bardsey Island. And this is, the water comes clean. It's called the Cold Well, and or the Witch's Well. And it's people come there to get their water. It runs cold. It runs consistently all year round. Even in the droughts, it's running completely clear. A beautiful, powerful place. Oops, sorry. This is kind of the swamp, which kind of the water from the spring drains into that swamp. And one of the things that had to be done really early on in the permaculture work was to make offerings to the spirits within the swamp. The spirit there is a wild boar sow. And she won't let you go into those woods. When you go close to it, it's like this force field, and you have to wait until you get the okay. So probably once a year, maybe, kind of go in there and make an offering. This is a bounty. This is grow really good garlic. lots of garlic. It's kind of wonderful camp places. So the whole place, it's a project in motion. So it's growing, it's continuous, but it's becoming, it's the creating of sanctuary. It's building of something that wants to kind of manifest. And we all need to thrive. This is how we kind of grow, how we there is such a need for hope in the world. And actually by us thriving in our alternative ways, in our ways of good relationship with all beings, we're resisting all those things that kind of basically on a death spiral. Salam. This is a couple of weeks ago. These are some of the plants. And each plant, so because a lot of it was sheep grazed, and the sheep, because of their stocking levels, they kind of they really reduce the biodiversity. And once they are shut back, so the main field of working with, it's been sheep free now for a couple of years, but for fields that aren't, there's such a limited, the biodiversity is so limited because the farmers have to have the stocking levels because of to get a living off it. But once you start, I've done all that was planted, this was planted. So a lot of the project has been actually reintroducing species, bringing back the biodiversity. because I believe or realize that everything is the spirit in the body. We think of humans as being spirits in bodies. So is everything else. And actually, by increasing the biodiversity, we're building the spirit world. Because each one of those plants, there was no St. John's wort there. So I've cultivated St. John's wort. So I've brought in the spirits of St. John's wort. And then all those the healing energies of each one of those herbs. So every bit that one increases the biodiversity, it adds to the dynamism and the beauty. These weird plants that what was it? I've forgotten. Verbena. That's where it's all based. I lived in there for about 6 months. It's a shepherd's hut, and then I lived around the back in a static. And that's the kind of the big stone, the mother stone. That's the one that kind of holds the space. So we run camps here. So we've got a camp happening at the end of June, and then we have the Heart of You Lunacy camp happening at the end of July. So there's lots of places to camp and lots of places to explore. So please come and visit. That's where you contact me. Okay, that's it, folks. So any questions?
If you'd like to ask a question, do pop your hand up using the raise hand in the reactions tab at the bottom. I haven't exactly got a question, but there was something you said about how all of the activity is gardening and creating a garden that just sort of touched me. That I'm sort of sitting with.
Yeah, I think that so resonated because I came from an arts background, and so the actual creating of an artwork, or say a painting or a sculpture, or whatever it is, that's what you're doing. You're tending, you're caring, and you're also bringing something from the imaginal, and you're manifesting it in the material. That's the creative process, and that's kind of what it's all about. I mean, I used to make art objects. I don't really do it anymore because in a way, what I'm doing here is my artwork. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Chris, you've got a question. I'll ask you to unmute.
I was just really interested in kind of in the permaculture and how you find the solutions, and whether when you're finding solutions on the land, whether those are kind of really quite local to where you are, or whether you can sort of spread that knowledge through the permaculture communities, and whether actually it's more about the kind of the process of solving problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really have learned that how important the local is. It really, because everybody, on a land-based thing, you've got microclimate, you've got soil, you've got weather, you've got all the different bits that make it incredibly local. I mean, I think that also works spiritual as well, because I think that my experience is that the most potent spirits to work with are the local ones. But you know, in a way, the big ones they're further out. But if you're to have one's allies and spirits being your local team, the ones you go and hang out with on a daily basis, that makes it much stronger. And they you know everything kind of is connected. So if you're, I remember actually, it's funny. I was I'd been down in Glastonbury, and I was driving back, and it was just before I was driving up to Oxford, and I was on the 303, and I stopped off for a piss kind of somewhere near Stonehenge in some pine trees, and it was pissing with rain, and I had my piss, and I realised that it's like there were some big old pine trees there, and I could feel them, and it was like they said they kind of communicated to me, we know you, and we know what you're doing, and we know you've planted 3,000 trees or whatever. We know that you're a friend of the trees. And it was incredible. After that, within a couple of days, I went up to London, and I was walking through a park, just one of the little ones, cutting through, and I could feel the trees saying exactly the same thing, because it's the building of relationship, and you know that is, to me, is what it's all about. That's why we do magic. That's why we do ceremony. We're building relationships all the time.
Mm-hmm. I liked the question you had. What does my community need? That was a beautiful question as well. Go to Natalie next. I'll ask you to unmute.
Hi there. Hi,
Hi,
Steve.
hi,
Good to see you.
and you.
We'll be seeing you soon, hopefully.
Good.
Always fabulous to hear you talk about permaculture. And I don't know if it's a question, I was particularly struck by the importance of understanding the patterns in the land, from the history of what's gone before there and what's been imprinted from people's experiences, often from trauma. And I cannot help, and all along, this is something that's really drawn me, through being a psychologist, into thinking about relationship to land rather than relationships between peoples and in systems around their mental health. You know, is this relationshipness, and is this systemic thinking and the multi-layered aspects of something? And I love it. And I guess there's a question in there somewhere about, I think I know what you're going to say as an answer as well, but how important is it fundamentally to understand and to really get to know the land that you're working on, in terms of those layers of what has gone before, which helps you formulate right now what it is that you're feeling with the land that it needs, so you know how to intervene.
Yeah, and actually, just go back to come off from where you ended. Basically, the land actually tells me what to do.
Mm.
So it's by, I've got places I go and I tune in, and I'm literally, I'm told what to do. But in a way, it's how do you get, the key is how do you really get into it and get so you're getting the dialogue. And but it's kind of, in the sense, it's shamanic work. It's you're journeying into the land and seeing what needs to happen, and then getting kind of UPG stuff, kind of where you're kind of picking up a bunch of stuff, and then kind of going and trying to get it, going onto Google and into the books to try to get the verification, and then one thing leads to another, and asking, and then somebody walking along, or somebody tell you a little bit of snippet that sends you off down a rabbit hole. It's always down rabbit holes, really. Does that answer? It's a ramble. But, yeah.
It does, and I like how it's kind of a marriage of, importantly, what comes up through being in the sacred spaces where you're connecting through ritual or just being there or whatever, and also conversations with the community about knowledge and history that's held down through generations about what has occurred.
And also I think it's kind of it's the land will only show you, or the place shows things in little bits. It shows, it's as one builds the relationship. It's like any relationship. When as trust builds, one learns, one is shown more is revealed.
How do you balance that with being patient? This is coming from somebody who isn't very.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not on our terms, and we think in very short human lives, but when you're thinking of the life of a rock or whatever, it's Ent speak, really, isn't it? No,
Thank you.
Lots of time, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Steve and Natalie. Albie and Bo, one of you've got your hands up, or both?
And lower hand. I've lowered my hand. Thanks, Steve. That was excellent. Your enthusiasm comes across in droves. What did you say just now? As we learn to trust nature, it reveals more of itself, and that's certainly true of our journeys into Dartmoor. It's very much like that. One thing that I really loved about your presentation were the little gardens that grew on top of the fence posts.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah.
And so there's that randomness. Because I have a garden, and as you were speaking, I was thinking, what does the garden want? And I could imagine you could have a shamanic journey, and you can ask, you could pose that question, because I think to have access to land and to call it your own land that feels like a misnomer right from the start. It's just land, so I'm interested in, and I've had the experience of being out on your land, which is really, really special. I loved it. But I'm interested in, your groupings of courgettes and whatever, irises, or that is really, you are told to do that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of, I'm it's an artwork. I mean, in a sense, I'm approaching it as I used to approach painting, So I'm working like that, and it's chaos, really. But I mean, because it's slowly coming together, and it's kind of, it's hinting, like when you're painting or creating an artwork of any type. Yes. It's one action then gives you the next action, because that adds, you're continuously, if I put a slob of blue there, it needs something over here and then something there, and it's working in that type of way with the land. And also just that we don't, because I'm working with, I'm not aiming to get a crops off it, of food. So, well, long term, yes, nuts. I mean, it's on glacial moraine. It's got incredible wind problems. It's pretty wild. There's better places for growing veg and not good food a bit down the hill, but it's great. Nuts are going well, so I've planted lots and lots of sweet chestnuts and lots of hazel. I mean, the sweet chestnut will hopefully we'll start getting some nuts in what 10 years, maybe a bit less, but you're talking real long-term planning. So I mean, there is a sweet chestnut on Mount Etna that is 3,500 years old and is still cropping. You know, so you're getting a nut crop with no work for 3,000 years. You know, and that's what we need to do. I mean, one of my things is I hope you know, I envisage some ancestor in a couple of years' time kind of wandering through this land, and they go, "Thank God, somebody knew what they were doing," you know, you know, because the place will be full of food.
It's also,
you know, but it's not. It's sorry.
It's also how you use your resources there, and I love that there was the two donkeys in the field, and then you could use the donkey manure. It was a really lovely example of things syncing together. There was a community there, and so you don't have to buy in the fertilizer. It's there, and I thought that I was really impressed with that. Shifting things around. That's needed. It's useful. It's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, in many senses, but you know, this is a multi-layer project. So, in one sense, it's a model. It's a way. It's a microcosm. It's a model of how we can do things. It's experimental. It's what works. You know, some stuff hasn't worked. You know, and you know, it's ongoing and it's growing and it's changing. And you know. Yeah, great. Nice one, Albie.
Thank you. I think Barry and Anne have got their hand.
Hiya. So I'm interested to know, as part of your work with the land, are you kind of engaging with it from the point of view of, you know, herbal resources, medicinal resources, which is obviously can be a lot of the wildcrafted stuff that is already there, because, you know, that's, I mean, we own a piece of land, and actually a lot of our relationship with that land is about that side of it, as in fact more than actually food growing, because it's a piece of woodland as such, and so I was interested in that, and also that in a way would potentially sit well with approach to working with herbs and medicinal plants called intuitive herbalism, rather than necessarily the very formal studying of medicinal herbs, but actually the approach of actually going and speaking to the plants that are there and seeing what they tell you, because there's a guy who's you know, runs this thing called intuitive herbalism, but there's some beautiful books that they've produced. So I just wondered if you're engaging with that side of it, and if that's part of the work you're doing with the land.
Yeah, definitely. What was that?
About working with the land, about working with what's there in terms of you know, medicinal herbs, medicinal plants.
Yeah, I meant what I'm getting a lot of feedback, Chris. And you're on mute. Is that better? Okay, can you hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, one of the layers of one of our projects is and I'm experimenting with, is growing a lot of Chinese medicine herbs in a wildcraft. So in a sense, it's because I understand that the supply lines for Chinese medicine are really adulterated. They've been over harvested, and a lot of them have lost their vitality. And a lot of them, for their potency, they need to be a little bit stressed. So basically, I'm planting. I mean, what was I planting today? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of kind of trying different Chinese plants. Kind of, yeah. So it's a real medicinal source. The medicine is a real big part of it. And actually, because we need to have an income stream. So actually, the herbs, high quality, high potency, high vibration organic herbs can help bring in the income stream, and we need that. You know. But it all needs a lot of.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I mean, it's not because it's an obvious adjunct to permaculture. Really, is the medicinal side of it, and again, it's part of that relationship with the land, because that's equally relating to the plant spirits, and honouring them but working with them in that way as well. So we'll make it sometime. I don't think we'll make it there this year, but sometime we will get there.
Very, very, very well. I'm getting a lot of
Thank you. Kathy, you had your hand up before. Do you have a question?
Not so much a question, except I'm just wondering if anyone else is from the U.S. I'm right in the middle of the United States in Missouri, and the history of the land and the people here is awfully raw and recent with what was done with the indigenous peoples, and you can still feel the pain in the land. And I try to interact with the nature beings and the trees, but the pain of the people is just pretty bad. So that was all.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it really is. I get it. I lived in North America. I lived in Montreal for 3 years, and you can really feel it. You know. Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, to that end, Steve, have you had any time kind of working with people who have got healing needs themselves? So in the past life, I kind of worked with addicts, and getting them onto the land was really important as part of their healing journey. Is that something you've explored? And
Yeah, I mean, I used to do kind of forest school stuff with all sorts of kids, and yeah, in a sense, it's not. It's more like creating a place where other people could bring people. So it's in a way it's that feels more to me what I to do is create a sanctuary, and then others can come and use it and use it. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? I can pause the recording now for anyone who's got a question who doesn't want to be recorded. Thanks for joining us. We meet at 7 o'clock on the first Wednesday of every month. If you'd like to join us, go to bit.ly/heartofyou or check the Heart of You website. See you there.